We got him via video. Jake Crain of Crain Company on the line. Jake, what's going on, man? How are you? Good to see your face again.
Hey, Chris, what's up, man? Yeah, glad to be back on video and just got done recording the show earlier this morning. We got some extra content we're about to film in here, but a little bye week for South Carolina. You can just look around. It's, in coaching during the bye week, you typically don't do a lot on Saturday. You may come in Saturday night, but as a fan, the bye week, especially if it's going good or if you may have got back on track, it always comes in clutch.
Now, Jake, what I like about your show, man, you guys talk national. You talk a little bit of everything, and of course, with it being Friday before the bye week, we've been kind of having some random conversation. The first 15 minutes or so. I'm not a big NFL guy. I mean, I don't dislike it, but I stay pretty locked in with Carolina and the college game and all that good stuff. And I think you and I would both agree the college game is superior to the product the NFL
For
provides.
sure.
But bro, why do these Thursday night games suck so bad? And they're on Amazon Prime. Like, I'm doing a pick'em league, right? So, I mean, I'm not watching the games, but I'm looking at the scores. And it's like last week, there isn't even a touchdown scored. Last night is 0-0 at half. What's wrong with the NFL, man? Or at least the Thursday night games. They're terrible.
Well, I think some of it is obviously kind of luck. You do the schedule before the season. You try and get as many big markets in the game. I mean, I felt bad for Kirk Herbstreit and them last night in the booth. I mean, it got to a point halfway through the second quarter because unfortunately I did have to watch it. They were just literally like, guys, I promise they're going to score a touchdown eventually on Thursday. Like, eventually we're going to get another touchdown. It just, to this point, Chris, I think Tom Brady said it best when they asked him the other day about looking around the NFL and kind of what are you seeing from you and your team? And he's like, there's just a lot of bad football right now. I mean, really, how many elite teams are in the NFL or how many good teams? And when you schedule Thursday night games, it's not like you can say, all right, guys, this week we're going to change it. We're going to put these two teams that are playing each other because they're good on Thursday night. Thursday obviously competes with Monday, but it's unfortunate for Amazon Prime. It's really nobody's fault other than the teams not being good. The teams and it's still early in the season. Obviously the matchups, there'll be some better ones down the road, but early you just kind of ran into a bad stretch of teams. I mean, the Broncos on offense, I mean, like I said, I think there's a better chance of Joe Biden getting out of a room full of mirrors than there is of the Broncos putting together 3 or 4 scoring drives. So last night, the Bears weren't able to punch it in from short. It shocked me they didn't attack the perimeter. The one time they ran a play to the perimeter outside of the run game and inside the 10-yard line, Justin Fields missed a wide open tight end. They had Kmet for a touchdown.
The college game, though, took center stage last night from me, at least. West Virginia, Baylor. That was a hell of a game. Did you watch that at all? Takeaways? I mean, again, I know we're talking Gamecocks here, but we all just love college football in general. Man, that was a hell of a game. West Virginia finds a way to get the dub, and Baylor still winless in Morgantown.
Yeah, it's one of those things. I had the TV going, 2 laptops going. What shocked me about the Baylor game a little bit is Baylor last year in Oklahoma State, obviously their identity was being physical, being able to run the ball, play action. Blake Shapen going down in the third quarter hurt them a lot. But defensively, there's still a lot of questions. I mean, watching Baylor, and look, West Virginia's offensive line is not good. If you've watched West Virginia at all this year, they've been really, really bad up front. C.J. Donaldson, their freshman running back, who didn't even play last night, who's their leading rusher, has looked pretty good. But the Mathis guy comes in and runs for $163 on Dave Aranda and Baylor's defense. But it was big for Neil Brown. He needed that one. He's on the hot seat. If you look at the rest of West Virginia's schedule, it's not exactly a walk in the park either. So for Baylor, you got to come back. You get Kansas at home. You're probably still not going to have Jalen Daniels. But it's just, you see the ebbs and flows year to year. They were experienced and old and veteran on defense last year, lost a couple guys up front. And just losing that couple and replacing them is always tough.
Jake, let's talk South Carolina, Kentucky, because I see a lot of comments right now, the 5-7, 5-7, 5-7. And to be fair, I also picked Carolina to lose. So, I mean, yeah.
Well, my thing is this. You got to be realistic. It was a huge win for South Carolina. I loved what Beamer did after the game, throwing the shade back on Stoops for the sunglasses comment. I thought that was perfect. Shane Beamer, that was peak Shane Beamer. But look, Kentucky didn't have Will Levis. Let's be honest. It's a good win from South Carolina, but 2 things can be true at once. Not having your starting quarterback's a big deal, but especially when you're Kentucky and you don't have an explosive offense to begin with. Anybody, and I think all the South Carolina fans that know what they're looking at, would tell you Kentucky's not an explosive offense. What Kentucky tries to do is wait you out, And now they got Chris Rodriguez back. That was big for them. But they try and wait you out and let you make the mistake at the end. And the games they've lost, they've been the team making the mistake at the end. But last year with Wan'Dale Robinson, remember, we saw it. It was deep, 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 deep. He'd come up third and short. He was the fixer, could take the slant for a touchdown. They don't have this guy this year. But it was good to see it was good to see Spencer Rattler and those guys get a win, especially with the way it's been going. But I'll say, like I always say, and you look now at Texas A&M, that game looks a lot more winnable. Missouri, I think, is a little bit better than what people thought. I know that their record isn't great, but if you look at kind of Brady Cook and the way they're playing a lot better. You should have beat Auburn. It was the biggest joke I've ever seen that you didn't beat Auburn. But when it comes down to it, and you really look at it, how do you match up to the other teams? I think especially at home, South Carolina and A&M is basically even, and I may even give a little bit of an advantage to South Carolina. What you can't do is turn the ball over, and you can't let Haynes King run around and extend the play on the outside. And John, nobody's saying Missouri is good. We're saying Missouri is better than what they are. Like, you need to calm down, bro. Listen, comprehend, use your ears. That's what separates us from the animals. That's why I don't have to dodge a cheetah going to work, because we got out of the food chain. So listen, my friend, it'll help you. And look both ways before you cross the street. But again, my biggest thing, Chris, is that South Carolina is still going to have to play very well to win these games. Yeah. You're not going to be able to play bad and win these games with the personnel that you have. So it was a good win for Beamer. I would caution South Carolina fans, because they are smart, to make sure you take it with a grain of salt. You can't get too high. You can't get too low.
That's the intriguing thing, Jake, or the interesting thing with not just South Carolina fans, but college fans, or maybe just fans in general, is that, especially in SEC football, though, it's such a week-to-week game. The highs are so extremely high and the lows are so extremely low.
That's what makes it fun.
Right. There isn't a whole lot of staying in the middle, because, I mean, this time last week, I had people telling me, Chris, 4-8, 5-7's best case scenario for this team. And then South Carolina beats Kentucky, whether it be with Levis or not. You got people talking about this team could start 7-2. It's just like, it's wild how it's a roller coaster. It's a roller coaster, but it's the SEC roller coaster. That's why we all love it. I thought, Jake, the tone for that game was really set after the first play. And I know it was 7-7 at half, and the game could have gone either way, but I don't know, man. I just felt like, Kentucky's been this team over the years, especially against the Gamecocks. It's been ground and pound, win at the point of attack, physicality. And that first play, I understand Levis didn't play, but the fact Kentucky felt the need to run some gimmicky finesse trick play, and it obviously got blown up, Gamecocks recovered the fumble, it just told me Kentucky's just not confident it's going to win tonight. Like, they're not confident in doing what they've always done. And so I felt like from the jump, I was like, this is South Carolina's game to win.
Number one, Jeff, appreciate the love, man. Here's the way I look at it. When the quarterback's not playing, and nobody knew before anyone other than the Kentucky staff that Will Levis was for sure not playing. The minute you found that out, you know who the backup is. Why do you think they were trying to protect him so much in the games before this? So when you're a coach and all right, we are going to have to find a way to manufacture points. We're probably not going to be able to turn around and just hand it off to Chris Rodriguez for 4 quarters and try and wait these guys out. And you never want to be in the position of just hoping somebody plays bad. Like, man, let's be super safe. Let's hope South Carolina comes in here and plays bad. That's what you want to affect the game. You don't want to have to rely on the other team to affect the game. But them running that trick play, the first play of the game. Number one, it's the worst time to run it. Okay, you want to know when the worst time to run a trick play is? When I remember being the DC and even being on all the staffs I was, the first play, you are telling your guys, watch for the trick play. Watch for the trick play, because they always run it on the first play. You know when the best time to run the trick play is? On the second play. That would just send everybody. Nobody expects a trick play on the second play. Why do you think screens work so good on first down? Because most times people think you're getting screens on what? 3rd and long, 2nd long, stuff like that. So I think Kentucky took a chance. It backfired. And the minute it backfired, they retreated back in the hole. Then they said, okay, all right, now we have to be super safe, because we know that we can't do anything outside of the little bit we're asking this backup to do. So I think that's what they got caught in. Look, South Carolina had to make the plays. You had to get off the blocks on the offensive line. You had to be able to read through the guards. You got to read pullers. You got to play front side, backside at linebacker. You got to know who you have in the secondary and make plays on the ball. So you got to give South Carolina credit. But I do think that instant turnover that led to instant points in a game there wasn't going to be a lot of points scored was huge and really changed the mindset from then on out.
You mentioned Spencer Rattler, Jake. Let's talk a little bit about the offense because, again, like you mentioned, great win, but critical minds can look at the ball game, understand what happened. And certainly I have not been, I mean, from the Gamecock side of things, the fun is in the winning, right? When it comes to sports and especially college football, and especially when you're a team like the Gamecocks, when you can't get nitpicky with winning. You know what I mean? Like, it's not like South Carolina's going to go 15-0. Like, Alabama can be picky with the way they win. I don't know that it's a wise thing for South Carolina to pick it apart. Just be happy you're 4-2 and won the ball game. But you look at that game, and critical minds can look at that and say there's still a lot left to be desired on the offensive side, right? Just 90 yards of offense in the first half. However, give credit where credit's due. That second half, Spencer Rattler goes 8 for 10. They have 3 70-plus yard scoring drives. You have like 260-something yards of offense, something like that. Just talk a little bit about what you saw from Spencer Rattler. I mean, again, I think that's still obviously the question mark with South Carolina is on a week-in, week-out basis, will they get enough out of the offense? But if nothing else, that second half was the best half of football, I would say, they've played at this point this season.
Yeah, that's where you're going to get the most confidence from. And it's always great when it comes in the second half for a couple of reasons. It means the guys got the message at halftime and you made the necessary adjustments at halftime. My biggest critique of Auburn and Brian Harsin is they can't score more than a touchdown against teams that are Power 5 in the second half because they can't adjust. And if you don't know how to adjust, it's because you don't know what you're looking at. And that's the thing that worries you the most, or you're just nervous to do anything. I would say with Spencer, again, he really put it together in the second half. Obviously, confidence is huge for the quarterback. It's also another week where, or one of the first weeks where everybody's not trying to burn Marcus Satterfield's house down. So I'm sure the Satterfield family appreciates that. Another big thing when you're looking at Spencer is I think Spencer actually took what the defense was giving him in the second half. He didn't force a lot of balls. It didn't look like Spencer was out there trying to make it happen. He was letting it happen. He was taking the underneath. He was understanding the way the coverage was rolling. And Kentucky doesn't run a ton of different coverages, but when they did try to change, he was able to find ways to hurt them. There's a way to be aggressive without being stupid. One of my good friends is David Tollefson, who's the defensive end for the New York Giants that backed up Strahan and won 2 Super Bowls. And I would always ask him questions. And I was like, who are the 2 best quarterbacks you ever faced? And he told me one time, he's like, the 2 best I ever faced were Tom Brady and Peyton Manning. And I'm like, well, duh. But he's like, it's not for the reason you think. Quarterbacks are the greediest people on the planet. The second greediest people on the planet are offensive coordinators. It's very hard for OCs and quarterbacks to go all the way down the field, throwing the check down, throwing the hitch, throwing the slant, throwing the swing, using modified runs when they're making you keep everything in front instead of saying, you know what, I've thrown 3 short passes. Damn it, we're going to throw it deep. I'm not throwing another short pass. They will nickel and dime you all the way down the field. They're patient and they don't get greedy. And if you're able to blend that with the ability to attack a defense when the defense gets greedy, that's how you start whipping people's ass on a consistent basis. And you saw a little bit of that with South Carolina. Now, can you take that? And you don't have the greatest personnel. It's always going to come down to personnel, which means your margin for error is what? Smaller. So can they take that second half, compartmentalize that, but also use that going forward? And a bye week, you're kind of pissed off it's the bye week a little bit because you showed that great second half. It's like the Braves. I didn't want the Braves to have 5 days off. I'm glad they weren't playing in the wild card, but you saw it. I mean, the first 5 innings, it looked like that Sandy Koufax had a baby with Randy Johnson up there. So it just at the end of the day, it's good news, and hopefully they can keep it going.
Let's talk a little bit, Jake, about Beamer ball. I don't know how much of a special teams guy you are, but the Gamecocks lead the country with 5 block punts, man. 5 block punts, and they blocked another one against Kentucky.
I was a special teams coordinator in Division I for 3 years, so I'm a big special teams guy. I used to tell people when I was coaching the special teams in the secondary, if something went wrong, it was probably my fault. Those are 2 positions that you can live by the sword, die by the sword, but it's huge. It's people don't. And fans, I get it. I understand it because there's not the volume of plays you get on offense and defense. Therefore, the biggest plays in the game are typically on offense or defense. But, Dan Reeves did a study, and I used to tell our guys this all the time, that if you block a punt, you win the game 88% of the time. That is a huge number because it's such a momentum-changing play. That's what it is. And if you're able to be a threat on special teams, which is great experience for young guys, especially the way that Shane's recruiting. I mean, you look, Julio Jones ran down on kickoff for Alabama for 3 years. You want to talk about how important it is? That's how important it is. So being able to scare guys, it messes with punters. Punters know how many blocks there are, but he's just taking a branch off old Frank's tree and bringing the special teams down to South Carolina. And that, once he has the personnel in there and the rosters are more even, and you're in these tight games against teams that have been better than you, that could be the difference. That blocked punt, that blocked extra point. How many missed extra points have we seen come back to absolutely haunt people this year, Chris? We've seen it all over the league. Kick returns for touchdowns, being good in coverage, punt, kickoff. The little things add up to big things, and special teams will always be 33.3% of the game, Chris.
Indeed, and also the swinging gate 2-point conversions that we've seen so much. Tonka
Yeah,
Henry
man. I mean,
had
he's
a
going
field
real
day with it.
That.
The old swinging gate, you love to see it. Sticking with the special teams thing, because like you said, Jake, it's not the sexiest thing to talk about. You know, I make sure though over the summer when I do my preseason stuff, I make sure to preview the special teams unit because, like you mentioned, it's a third of the game. It's a major facet of the game. Is it more of an effort thing? Is it a scheme thing? Because like everybody does special teams, but obviously not everybody does special teams the same
Yeah,
way.
Chris, here's the thing. This is what I always, and you have to tell the young guys this, right, when you get them. Special teams is not a different sport. We are not doing anything different. For example, all kickoff return and kickoff is a run play with more distance in between you when the ball is kicked, snapped, or whatever. A kickoff return typically is nothing but a power play with a kick, a counter play with two guys going to kick. A lot of it is based off double teams, a zone play. It's a run play, so you have to therefore be able to fit the run. It's harder because it's from a lot further distance, and it looks funny, but it is a football play. I always used to tell them, I want you guys to think of this as a football play. Punt and punt return, it's the same thing. When you're holding up on punt return, you are basically a blocking wide receiver. That's what it is. So it's when you put it in those terms, it's amazing how the young guys' eyes would just kind of glow up and they'd be like, well, duh, that makes sense. Now I can understand it better. When I say that I'm running down as I kick my table, see, I'm getting excited about special teams, Chris. You did this. It's huge. So it's a football play that just looks a little bit different from the others. So it's just as important.
Now, Jake, obviously, notably, you had the Gamecocks 5-7 in the preseason. I had them 8-4, and I believe that, you know what, over the summer, you make your picks, you make your predictions. I certainly am not going to be someone that's going to ask you to change. I had somebody ask me in our Big Cock Club Discord earlier this morning, will Jake Crain apologize for his preseason prediction? I said no, and I wouldn't want him to because that's whack. I wouldn't apologize for my prediction, and then we make week-by-week predictions, picks, whatever. But the question I'll ask you is this, is again, you had the Gamecocks going 5-7, which most importantly to me is South Carolina missing bowl eligibility. No matter how it happened, you beat Kentucky and you're 4-2, which was a game you didn't expect them to get. How much differently now does the outlook for South Carolina look for you as they go in the second half in regards to just simply reaching bowl eligibility? And you factor in, like you mentioned, and it seems like this happens every year, but a lot of these teams you once looked at on your schedule as daunting, you kind of look at as like, those are gettable now, right? A&M. What is Florida? I still don't know what Florida is. But Mizzou, Vandy, you've still got. All of a sudden, I would assume in your mind, 6 maybe looks a little bit more achievable. Just talk about in regards to as we go into the second half. Does your outlook for the Gamecocks in regards to getting to postseason play change a little bit?
Yeah, look, I think sometimes when we get to this point, like the answer's somewhere in the middle, right? Like I say, they're going 5-7, you're going 8-4. So answer's probably somewhere in the middle. Probably somewhere between 6-6, 7-5 right now when you look at how A&M's been playing. Because, again, teams change during the season. That's why preseason rankings they're fun. They're fun for us. They're fun for the fans. Get them, people get upset. People get excited. And then you see the actual teams, but you see the injuries, right? Yeah. Like Arkansas looks a lot different now than they did for the first couple of weeks. But now, I mean, I'm going to stick with it. I think it's somewhere. It's probably going to end up being 6-6. To be honest with you, this A&M's game is huge. This is a swing game. Kentucky game was a swing game last week. Now this A&M game becomes the swing game because if you're able to beat A&M, I mean, you're pretty much looking at what should be 7 wins with Missouri and obviously Vanderbilt. If you lose to A&M, changes it up a little bit. But I will say, I think you've avoided the injury bug decently at South Carolina. I know there's been some linemen that have been out, but when you look at some of these other places that are losing quarterbacks, that are losing places in position or people in position of need all the time, I think South Carolina is relatively healthy. I would say right now, if I was going to make a prediction, not changing the one I did before, but after seeing it, because things change when you actually watch, I would say probably 6-6, 7-5 is what is looking most likely.
Yeah, and I think that's fair. And I will say to your point about, not to completely change the subject, but the preseason rankings and just the rankings in general. If you want to know how ridiculous the rankings are, just look at Florida, unranked, beat Utah. They're like 12th or they're
Yeah.
15th. Then they lose to
Well,
Kentucky. Then they're unranked again. It's just like it's
well,
so stupid.
Chris, that's why we don't on Crain Company on our show, we don't put out our power rankings until after week 3.
Yeah.
We'll do where we think people are going to finish in the preseason and things like that. But you really just don't know. I don't think we should have a preseason AP poll. I don't think we should have a preseason coaches poll. I think the poll should come out week 4. That's when the poll should come out, because we have a much better sense then. You can have official rankings, I guess, if you want, but again, it's kind of pointless because they always change so much, and it could keep a team from being able to move up. Like, give you a great example, 2004 Auburn went undefeated in the SEC, won the SEC championship, wasn't able to play in the national championship game. Yes, it was only 2 teams, but because Oklahoma and USC just started out higher than them. And Oklahoma, literally a guy was walking around with a peg leg with Jason White at the end of the day. You ended up winning the Heisman. But Kaki Twan, Auburn is ass. I'll be the first person to tell you that. I'm literally the hardest person on Auburn. That doesn't hurt my feelings. You want to know why? Because it's hard to kill something that's already dead inside. All right, it's hard to kill something that's already dead inside, or to get them upset. Like, the funny part is, when you've been in the business, it does desensitize you a little bit to that boyhood fandom. Chris, I think you can speak to this as well. You don't watch the games the way I don't watch Auburn like, oh, please, God, I'll do anything to get this 3rd and 6 anymore, because I probably know what's going to happen, because I know how bad their personnel is. So I just love when I come in here and we talk about Auburn like I really care. And to be honest with you, Auburn not being good and Auburn being good, both are equal for business. So if you want the absolute truth, there it is right there. But the Harry Potter reference, I'll give you one right now. The only way Auburn's going to beat Alabama is if they know Gandalf or Dumbledore. How about that?
I need to get a Gamecock tattoo, and underneath it just says, "You can't kill what's already dead inside."
You can't kill what's already dead. Good luck.
That's the best way to put it.
That's what I'm gonna do right when I leave here. I'm gonna go eat lunch. That's what I'm gonna do. Can't kill what's already dead inside. Write that down.
Oh my God, I love it. Jake Crain of Crain Company. Jake, before I get you out of here, man, the most ranked matchups in a college football weekend since 2017, I believe I read, and we've got some big ones, of course. The headliner, Alabama, Tennessee. I'm on the Volunteers plus 7.5. I don't know if they win, but I think it's a close game. I don't know, man. Vols plus 260 might be the play. Clemson, Florida State's another big one, obviously, for obvious reasons for our folks. Just talk about the SEC slate, the national slate. What do you like this weekend?
Yeah, number one, Travis, Auburn was not on probation in 2004. I promise. They literally played Virginia Tech and won that game.
Frank Beamer's Virginia Tech. Yeah.
Yep, that's exactly. Oh, how about that? I honestly didn't even remember that.
Yeah.
Look, the Tennessee Bama game, I think Bryce is going to play. I don't think there's a way in which he doesn't play, but just because he plays doesn't mean he's going to be full effect Bryce. I mean, right now, if you're Tennessee's defense, he's not running. All right, they're not going to run him. You know that if you show pressure, he's going to have to get rid of that ball quick. And if you know that, to me, I'd show pressure all night and never bring it, because you want to know if you can get there before. Alabama's offensive line has good players, but they have struggled before. You go look at their record on the road, how tight these games are, including the one at Texas, because that atmosphere at Neyland is going to be as hostile as it's ever been. I mean, they smell blood. It's like, what do they say on Borat? It's like, we go around Bilo and we say, you never get this, you never get this. One day, Bilo break cage and Bilo get this. Like, I feel like this may be the weekend where Bilo breaks the cage and gets this.
It's going down in Neyland. Your favorite plays, gambling plays? You got anything for the people? Is it that game, or is there another game? Why? One that stands out to me, man. Clemson's only 3.5 against Florida State. Is that?
Yeah, I'm a little nervy on that one. I don't trust
Jordan. Seems kind of crazy.
Freak out at any more point in time and play really good. I love the under in the Iowa State-Texas game. One, because the team's playing that has the word Iowa in it. And they've really struggled offensively. I mean, Decker, their quarterback, I mean, the dude is basically just a noodle arm out there playing. Also, that Kansas Oklahoma game, I'm not touching that one, man. To be honest with you, there's a couple more. It's a weird weekend. Like, how do I not take Tennessee plus 7.5? How do I not do that? Like, how do I honestly look?
I think we all want to believe that's going to be a great game too. We
Yeah,
want to
and not
believe
take
that's
it.
going to be a great game.
I don't see Tennessee getting blown out.
Right.
I don't see it. Which to me, if Bama wins by 2 touchdowns, that's a blowout with all the hype that's going up in this thing. So I like Tennessee plus 7.5. If Iowa's playing, whoever they're playing, take the under. I tell you what, I like Illinois at home plus 6.5 this week. I'm telling you what, Chase Brown. If you haven't seen that guy at running back and what Bielema is doing up there, it's a pretty good situation.
Auburn, Ole Miss. How much longer does Harsin have?
Man, can we just do this? Like, can we just fire this guy? Like, what's going on? Like,
I saw your rant after the LSU game. I think it was.
You know he's getting fired. Yeah. He knows he's getting fired. You got the bye week after Ole Miss. The problem is there's no AD right now. It's probably going to be the Hartwell guy from Utah State, and if that's the case, Auburn's going to hire Jeff Grimes. So go ahead and get ready for that. But I think they're going to get an AD in there before they make a ton of moves. But I would not be shocked if he got fired after this weekend. I mean, he's a dead man walking. You know what I'm saying? It's over now. It's over. It's just like they used to do with the old people in the villages back in the day. They just put them on a raft and push them down the river when they got so old. They're like, you're so old, like you lived in like long enough and you're eating a lot of food or not eating a lot of food now. So we're just gonna see what happens. We'll send you to Valhalla.
Jake, I just laugh because you remind me of South Carolina in the Muschamp era. So I've been exactly on the side you are, and it is a time for sure. But it sounds like all of Auburn Nation is kind of with you.
We won the Natty in 2010, played for it in 2013, won the SEC, beat Bama. I've seen Auburn be good. Like, it's at the end of the day, like I've had mine. I enjoy watching other people get theirs, even though it's Georgia last year. It was nice seeing them actually do something. So look, we got our rings. Like, you want more? You obviously want more. But right now, when you're looking at Bama and Georgia, it's just like, damn, dog. Like, you got to bring in a hero. We need a hero. That's what we need. Like, look, I'll do it. Price is right.
Jake said, "Feels good to be good. We got the rings," he says. Meanwhile, I'm just trying to get to 7 wins and
maybe look, y'all get it.
Hey, we're getting there. We're getting there. Jake Crain of Crain Company. Always a pleasure chatting with you, Jake. Thank you so much again. Y'all check out Jake's work and the show. Let people know again when it airs, where it airs, how they can tune in.
Yeah, man, we had a great week this week. Had Danny Cannell. We talked a bunch of college football. Tom Luganville. We talk everything NFL, Major League Baseball. I mean, the NHL starting, but forgive me if we just don't go all in on the NHL during the greatest sports time of year with the NFL, college football, Major League Baseball playoffs, Quidditch just down to the semifinals. So it's just a great time of year. There's another Harry Potter reference for you. But no, yeah, you can check us out 7:30 to 9 Eastern every weekday morning. Saturday, we put out a Saturday special. On Sunday, we do a recap that recaps college football and the NFL, previews the NFL. So come check us out.
Jake Crain at Crain Company. Jake, I appreciate you taking the time, man. Always a pleasure.
See you guys.
Yeah, man. We'll talk soon.